Well, good morning and welcome back to another Talk Tuesdays. Yeah, let's just address the elephant in the room, or should I say hairy monkey in the room. I'm sure everyone is well aware of what Movember is all about. Kind of creating global awareness of men's health. Something that us men don't like to talk about that often. Testicular cancer, prostate cancer, mental health and suicide prevention. So get the mows out for the boys. And I'd just like to say, if anyone is struggling with something, talk to someone. It can only help. I know it has helped me. I still sometimes struggle to talk, but I do at least open up to Nicola, and of course have also opened up a little bit here in this channel. So also just to say that these Talk Tuesdays that I record are a little bit more up to date, so you might find that come this Friday's video the Movember is gone, but it'll be back again at various points over the next few weeks. I also realised that I think I need a little bit of that just for men. Speaking of Nicola, she's over to my left, your right. She has been doing a daily sea dip for the last 22 days, 23 days. I hear that 21 days in a row, something becomes a habit. 90 days, it becomes a lifestyle. So she's progressing past the habit. And she says it's quite mild in there at the moment, which it is normally this time of the year. April's the coldest time to go in, as I found out on my first month here in Portrush. I also found out that I could scream like a little girl. So I thought I'd bring us outside again today. We're in the second week of November, and it's such a mild morning here. There's a big bit of high pressure hanging over the UK at the moment, which I'm sure in some parts of the country is bringing some lovely misty conditions. Here there was just a little tiny bit of a breeze, but it's lovely. I was out for a run this morning, and yeah, it was kind of a little bit too warm in my clobber. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things today. I'm going to start off with a little bit of a funny story. Well, I find it quite amusing anyway. So this for me never gets old. I've been doing a lot of photography over the last couple of months in woodland, as you'll get to see over the next 7 or 8 videos on a Sunday. Obviously we are in autumn, but we're actually just sort of coming out the back of the autumnal season now, so spend a lot of time in those woods. And without fail, someone will come up to me. Now I can see it happening, so I'm standing there, sort of camera pointed into the undergrowth, and out of the corner of my eye I can see someone approaching me, and then they kind of slow down to a little sort of tiptoe, but they keep advancing, and I keep looking either into the viewfinder or under the camera. And then when they get sort of within about 10 foot, they stop, and I kind of turn around, and they're like, "Is it okay to come ahead?" And I'm like, yeah, come ahead. Okay. And they tiptoe ever forward. Now they then should maintain their social distance. What are we looking at? What are we looking at? Oh, just some scruff. What's a scruff? No, scruff. You know, scruff. Now at this point they get a little bit more inquisitive, so they get a little bit closer, and you can see them looking, sort of peering into the back of the screen and peering into the woodland again. No, just scruff. Now at this point, if there are glasses wearer, they'll put their glasses on and they'll peer a little bit more into the camera screen, and sometimes they'll actually turn around and go, "Oh, never seen one of those before." At that point I don't have the heart to tell them that I'm literally just photographing scruff. little scruffy bits of woodland. And this happened a couple of days ago while I was making an image of Scruff, and it does make me laugh. So, speaking of people creeping up on you, remember I was talking about Nicola doing her daily sea dip? She's just finished her daily sea dip, so apparently she's not a fan of the Movember. So yeah, Scruff, the long neck Scruff, found in woodlands. It's the fact that they go, never seen one of those before. Of course, maybe I'll go home and look up Scruff and there will actually be a bird called Scruff. Anyway, so I was down here last week. I'm sort of doing this more and more now, especially as we are sort of all in our lockdown modes. Just spending, irrespective of the conditions actually, just coming down on our little local beach and just photographing, just taking in the atmosphere. And say quite often it's just overcast conditions. Unless I'm heading off to do an actual shoot somewhere, I just like getting out for an hour or so first thing in the morning and just taking a little bit of time. And I actually quite like it when the conditions are sort of average, because you can just sort of sit or stand and enjoy a coffee and just watch the conditions develop. But one thing struck me as I was shooting, and I think this is something that we can all be quite guilty of, and it's certainly something I would see whenever we're on the workshops. When they'll come back again, I am hoping to get a semblance of one-to-one workshops started again in the next couple of weeks, fingers crossed. So have a look at the link below. And I think this is especially true whenever we are photographing sort of longer exposures at the coast. We'll set up our composition and we'll spend a little bit of time looking for a composition. But then we'll spend, once we're happy with that composition, we'll actually spend a lot of time just looking at the back of the screen, looking through the viewfinder, and obviously focusing more on the waves and the timing of the waves and the shape of the waves. And that's all great. That's exactly what you want to be doing. You want to, take a look into to see what shapes the waves are making, and then using a cable release, firing off the shutter at the most opportune moment. But when we spend, at least I know from my perspective, when I spend too long focusing on the back of the camera and not just taking a step back and looking at the scene around me, I can miss so much. And this was certainly the case the other morning. As I say, the conditions were pretty, a bit like today, pretty sort of overcast, not a lot of sort of light going on, and so I was just sort of focusing on photographing the sort of almost the emptiness and just the waves. But when I took a step back, I immediately noticed that top right hand side of the frame there was a little bit of transient light coming through, a little bit of pink glow, and in fact as that developed it started to reflect off the sand as well, and that allowed me then to just, now as you can see here from this little snippet, it literally was half an inch movement to the right just to lift the light just a little bit. And I wouldn't have seen that, and in fact within maybe 2 or 3 minutes that light had gone, and that had gone for the rest of the morning, and so I would have completely missed it. I wouldn't have even known it had been there. So it's just a little bit of tides coming a little bit, a heads up just to remember. And this goes for not just when you're shooting long exposures by the sea, any time. Really try to sort of take your eye away from the camera and just look around the scene. See what else there is, see how the lights develop. You look behind you. If you're at the coast, look to the horizon. Quite often that's where, because you can see quite a distance, look to see where the weather's moving through. And yes, it might mean that you might have to then make a decision about changing a composition that maybe you have worked on for a period of time, but at least you'll be aware of the light around you. And again, this is more just not telling myself this here, to remind myself to take a step back from the camera and take a look at what's going on around me. So I think I'm going to move forward just a couple of steps, just in case this tide comes in a little bit too much. So I was down photographing at the River Ban on Saturday. Beautiful conditions, especially sort of pre-sunrise. Lovely sort of light coming on. It kind of subsided just a little bit. I recorded a vlog from there that you'll see weeks in the future probably. And then I took myself off. I put the vlogging camera away. I took myself off to go. In fact, it was the last time I was out there was one of the Scruff moments. So I was in just a little woodland. And then I noticed that the light really started to develop, and there's been a couple of scenes that I've wanted to shoot down on the river. Just how the light reflects off the trees on the far side of the river. So I kind of hightailed it down to the edge of the river. I kind of had the 18-135 on, and it wasn't quite long enough, so out came the 100-400. Now, one of the things I love doing with the long reach lenses, anything sort of over 200mm, is just either with your eye to the viewfinder or with your eye on the back of the screen, just slowly moving the camera through at 200, 300, 400mm. And of course on a crop sensor that's giving me sort of over a 500mm viewpoint. Just slowly moving it through the chaos of a woodland. I would love to be able to see sort of sections of composition in a wider frame. And I am starting to kind of see that when I'm walking through woodland, and that just comes through time. But the only way I can really be sure if there's something there is either I sometimes go out with a little sort of viewfinder. I still struggle a little bit with the viewfinder and the representative focal length. So using a little sort of cut out bit of cardboard just to give you sort of a 4x5 or a 3x2 or a 1x1 aspect ratio. But what I find most helpful is actually just with the 400mm, 300-400mm, maybe even putting it into an aspect ratio of a 1x1, and then just very slowly, just taking my time, panning around the different sections of woodland. And it's amazing actually how often something, especially when there's a huge amount of chaos going on, something will just sort of pop into frame. And that's certainly what happened down on the river band. So do that there with your longer reach lenses. If you're struggling with composition or struggling to see within the chaos, just get the old longer reach lens out. And I say it, even if it's a 200mm or a 70-200 is probably fantastic for that as well if you've got one of those. And just spend a bit of time, just even reduce it down to that 1x1 format if your camera supports that, and just really spend a little bit of time just slowly moving around. Because these are going to be more sketches, you're doing it handheld, so you've got so much flexibility. And in fact, if you've got enough light coming in, there's nothing to say that even if you have to bump up your ISO a little bit, that you're not actually going to be able to shoot. I love shooting handheld in a woodland. Now, sometimes when the light is quite low, that's going to make things quite difficult, but if you've got a lot of light coming in, walking around a woodland with a 70-200, 1-400, whatever, can be so liberating. It really, really can. So kind of taught myself, but reminded myself that again at the weekend, just as I was looking to pick out some scenes across the way. Now, you know me by now. Each to their own. Do whatever makes you happy. But of course, now it's died down a little bit now because it's been out for a couple of weeks, but Photoshop recently released a new option for doing sky replacement. And that goes along with a lot of the other standalone photo editing products as well. And yeah, I'm a Photoshop user, so I gave it a go, and let's face it, the results can be pretty impressive. And if that's what you want to do, work away. No qualms about it. No qualms about it whatsoever. Maybe just making people aware that that's what it is, but up to yourself. What I would say, however, the chase for light, the largely frustrating chase for light, I think is the single most exhilarating thing about being a photographer. It's starting to rain. It wasn't meant to rain. It's raining quite heavy now. Hang on. Nah, we'll carry on. Let's just take a scenario where you go out 10 times. The chances are that at least half of those times there's not going to be any decent light. Now, as I've said many times before, the whole, if you're in this for the long game, as frustrating as that can be, you know that it's still necessary. It's still necessary. And in fact, you are getting something out of that, even if it's not a final image. So that leaves you within 5 chances of getting decent light. So 3 times you'll get some light, and it'll make for a decent scene, it'll make for a decent image. Then one of the times you'll get really, really, really nice light, and it'll be like, oh yes, this is exactly what, especially if you're in a position where you have maybe scoped out a composition and you know what the light can be like, and it comes along. But then there's that one other time where the light is, I'm not even sure there's a word in the English vocabulary that would do it justice, but for those of you who have experienced this light, you know what I'm talking about. It's a light that is, again without getting too hippyish about it, almost spiritual. It's a light that makes everything, all the early mornings, all the frustrations, all the failures, everything worthwhile. It's a light that re-energizes you for the next perhaps 99 shoots without light. It's a light that can be quite difficult to shoot in because you get almost a fear of missing out. Should I be over there? Should I be over there? But it's a feeling like no other. Now, I myself have only experienced light like that. I've been doing this commercially as a sports photographer, professionally as a landscape photographer, 15 years now. And I would say that light like that, I've only really experienced a handful of times. Certainly I can't remember getting into double figures. Now, the more you're out, the more chances you have of experiencing light like that. But what I would say is you replace a sky in a scene and you post it up on social media and it gets a lot of traction. And that's fantastic. Again, this is not a rant against people doing sky replacement, not at all. But for me personally, and I know a lot of other photographers out there who are so passionate about their craft, no amount of likes, no amount of image sales, no amount of people on workshops, no amount of exposure can come close to that feeling that I get on that one time when the light is just spectacular. And so I would encourage you that if you are kind of struggling a little bit with, well, I didn't get the light, keep searching. Because once you find it once, and there's probably people out there who go, yeah, well, I've had nice light. No. This is different. And when you experience it even just once, I guarantee you will be hooked. That's what keeps us all going out. Yes, we go out for the sort of getting the eye in. Yes, we go out and we get some nice conditions. Yes, we go out and we get some beautiful conditions. But really we're going out for that 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 chance that the light, the conditions, everything is going to be spectacular. I say spectacular doesn't even do it justice. And I would encourage you to hunt that light out, because trust me, once you've experienced it once and you know it's out there, that'll get you out of bed in the morning. It really will. And trust me, you'll spend 99% of the time ultimately frustrated in the hunt for that light. But that for me is what makes it so special. Well, there you go, a little bit of a mixed bag this morning. That rain has now stopped. So I'm going to take my coffee. There's a little sort of water inlet running into the sea here, and at various times of the year, depending on what the tide is doing, there's some lovely patterns that get created along here. There's none actually this morning, but I love having something like this really close to the front door, because again, a bit like bing, 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 old Nessie out there, having a little project to work on. And I was out here the other morning and we got some lovely reflective light and we got some nice patterns, so I can see this becoming maybe a little bit of a project over the next couple of months, especially again as we are, well, we're now in Northern Ireland here, we're now a week away from, we're 3 weeks in already. We're a week away from potentially things starting to open up just a little bit. Hopefully might be able to get a little bit further afield. Well, I'm going to head back to the house. I was going to say grab a coffee, but hey, 2 coffees, and annoy Nicola by going a lot. Although I think I'm going to have to use a marker and just mark this down a little bit because it looks a bit lopsided because of my little grey tufts. Hope you've enjoyed my little Tuesday ramble, and we'll catch up again on Friday, where I think we're on this beach. Right guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.